Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, I know if you read the title of this video, what has government done with our money? Now, as of recently, I just finished this book actually titled What Has Government Done with Our Money? And as I'm reading this book, it has made me look at money in a totally different way. It has changed my outlook, changed my perspective, and changed my viewpoint when it comes to money. So I thought I would be able to share this information with you all because I know a lot of people don't know this information, and a lot of people should know this information. So I was willing to convert this information from this book into this PowerPoint that I created to help you guys out and to, let you know what, how money all started and, from the early times to the present moment. So we need to know this information. We need to utilize this information in order to better ourselves, not just financially, but just all around in our lives. So let's go ahead and get to this PowerPoint. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. All right, so what has government done with our money or done to our money? Before we can get into that, let's take a look at how money all started. So let's look at the value of exchange. Why do we even exchange? An exchange is an agreement between A and B to transfer the goods or services of one person for the goods and services of the other. Exchange is the prime basis of our economic life. Without exchanges, there will be no real economy and practically no society. Both parties benefit because each values what he/she receives in exchange more than what he/she gives up. If every person were forced to be self-sufficient, we would starve to death. Exchange is the lifeblood for our economy as well as civilization itself. So without the use of exchange, without the exchange of goods and services between, individuals, we will never thrive in this world. We will like I said in the PowerPoint, we will starve to death. There will be no real economy. If everybody was just self-sufficient and everybody was just out on their own, we will be done for because there are many resources that we actually need that are located in different regions of the world. So it's important for us to be able to, come to terms, come into agreement, and be able to, successfully exchange goods and services in order for humanity to grow and develop. Now let's get into the different type of exchanges that we had. So first up, we got direct exchange or barter, a direct exchange between goods and services. For example, Samantha exchanges her shoes to Taylor for her purse. This direct exchange or barter will not suffice in the long run. I'll tell you why. The two basic problems are indivisibility and lack of coincidence of wants. So if A has a supply of eggs for sale and B has a pair of shoes, how can they get together if A wants a suit? Any sort of civilized economy is impossible under direct exchange. All right. So then we have indirect exchange. Under indirect exchange, you sell your product not for a good which you need directly, but for another good which you then in turn sell for the good you want. So let's look at this example. A, who is a farmer, wants to buy the shoes made by B. Since B doesn't want his eggs, A finds what B does want, let's say butter. A then exchanges his eggs for C's butter and sells the butter to B for shoes. If one good is more marketable than another, then it will come into greater demand because it will be used as a medium of exchange. So for this example, the butter is the medium of exchange because it's the higher more people want the butter. More people want butter, so it's used as a medium of exchange, just like with money, like paper money, cash money, or like digital currency. Those are the things that are in today's age are used as medium of exchange. So in this example, since butter is widely used, it is considered the medium of exchange. People use it as a medium of exchange. The emergence of money. The emergence of money was a great boon to the human race. Without money, there will be no advancement of the economy above a bare primitive level. Now Jones can hire laborers and pay them in money. Since all exchanges are made in money, people can now compare the market worth of each good to that of every other good. So for this example, if a TV costs 3 ounces of gold and a car costs 60 ounces of gold, we can see that one car is worth 20 TV sets on the market. So all in all, guys, we have to come to realize this. All in all, money is simply a medium of exchange. Money is a commodity and a medium of exchange. People, some people tend to put money on this certain pedestal. They, praise money, worship money, think money in itself runs the world, runs people, and things of that nature. But when we come to realize that all money is a medium of exchange. We use money in exchange for goods and services. That's all money is. So we have to come to realize that once we start to understand this and to download this type of information into our minds and to recite this information, to always remember that money is only a medium of exchange and a commodity as well, then it'll change our perspective when it comes to money. Right? It'll become better and easier to manifest money in our lives if we choose to, if that's your goal or whatnot. So gold used to be the medium of exchange. Most tangible physical goods were traded in terms of weight. Gold was traded in terms of weight. The term dollar, franc, mark, etc. were simply names for units of weight of gold or silver, but all were considered sovereign and independent, and hence it was easy for countries to go off the gold standard. So all these different nations and countries and things of that nature start developing their own ego and whatnot. So they start to leave from the gold standard, start developing their own currencies and monies and things like that over time. Money warehouses, even in the convenient shape of coins, gold is often awkward to carry and used directly in exchange. For larger transactions, it is awkward and expensive to transport several hundred pounds of gold. Thus, gold must be stored somewhere. Some will be gold warehouses or banks and will store gold for its myriad owners. The store of goods is established by a warehouse receipt, which he/she receives in exchange for storing the goods. This warehouse will earn profit by charging a price for its storage services. So this is how banks came to be, or warehouses. First started off as warehouses and then transitioned into banks, which I'll get into the emergence of banks a little bit later in this PowerPoint. Or the next slide actually. The emergence of banks. It is well known that banks have rarely stayed on a 100% basis very long. Since money can remain in the bank for a long period of time, the bank is tempted to use some of the money for its account. The bank is tempted to use other people's money to earn a profit itself. So that's why, you might hear a lot of people say, don't leave your money in the bank. Use some of that money that you have in the bank to invest in your business, whether it be your business or investing in real estate or stock or just anything. Just don't leave all your money in the bank. Utilize that money to invest in something because the bank is tempted to, you know, draw money out of your account, use money out of your account, things like that. So we can't put our 100% trust in banks. Over time, these banks started issuing receipts with no gold behind. The banks, instead of lending the gold directly, printed uncovered or pseudo warehouse receipts for gold that is not there. These are then loaned at a profit. More warehouse receipts are printed than gold exists in the vaults. The pseudo receipts pour forth on the trusting market in the same way as the true receipts, thus and thus add to the effective money supply of the country. This is a result of inflation. So this is basically how inflation started. They start printing out these fake receipts that back gold that didn't actually exist. So this is how inflation started ultimately. And inflation is basically any increase in the economy's supply of money not consisting of an increase in the stock of the money middle. So fractional reserve banks are inherently inflationary institutions. So let's say, for instance, I deposit some money into the bank and they will use that money that I deposited as a reserve. So they would hold a small fraction of the deposit as a revenue, and then they will invest that money, that portion of the deposit to grow in revenue. So fractional reserve banks are inherently inflationary institutions. The bank creates new money out of thin air and does not have to acquire money by producing and selling its services. The bank is already and at all times bankrupt, but its bankruptcy is only revealed when customers get suspicious. So if customers don't get suspicious if we don't say anything about it because they're already bankrupt by inflating the money supply, if we don't say nothing, they gonna continue to do what they do. So that's why we need to know more about this information so we can, speak up about this and let people know about this because a lot of people don't know about this. Because the government, these banks, they sneaky, they sly and they sneaky. They try to do all these different things behind our backs, and we just don't even know. The revenue of government. Governments do not obtain their revenue as payment for their services. In a monetary economy, they will find it easier to seize monetary assets and then use the money to acquire goods and services or pay the money as subsidies to favorite groups. Such action is called taxation. So when you're, let's say a person or myself working a 9 to 5 job and you get your first paycheck, excuse me, you get your first paycheck and then the government takes a certain amount of money out of your paycheck, whether it be from income tax, sales tax, all these different taxes, and they use that money to whether it be generating revenue or uh, using that money to gain goods and services or buying different things. They just take money out of our check, things like that, our sales tax to do what they have to do, basically. If government can find ways to engage in creating new money out of thin air, it can quickly produce its own money without taking the trouble to sell services or mine gold. It can then appropriate resources slyly and almost unnoticed without rousing the hostility touched off by taxation. Now we see why governments are inherently inflationary because inflation is a powerful yet subtle means for government acquisition of the public's resources. So this is basically how they get, you know, our resources, by inflating the money, taxing us, and things like that. That's how the government rolls in on us. Inflation and taxation. The economic effects of inflation. The new money works its way step by step throughout the economic system. As the new money spreads, it bids prices up. New money can only dilute the effectiveness of each dollar. So As the money starts to inflate, as the surplus of the dollar rises, that's when the prices go up. So now you see all these different, all these prices going up with these different products in the stores. Back in the day, certain items didn't cost that much, but now, present time, since money has been inflated over time, as time goes on, that's when prices start to go up, and then the value of the dollar starts to go down. That's why you see a lot of people rarely using cash. You ever see that when you out in public, people don't even use cash no more. It's either digital currency, some type of digital currency, Apple Pay, credit card, debit card. Nobody uses cash no more because the value of the dollar is going down. All right, so let's look at this example. Suppose the economy has a supply of 10,000 gold ounces, and counterfeiters, so cunning that they cannot be detected, pump in 2,000 ounces more. What will be the consequences? Income/economic inequality. So the counterfeiters and their local retailers found their incomes increase before any rise in the prices of the things that they buy. People in remote areas of the economy who have not yet received the new money find their buying prices rising before their incomes. Inflation confers no general social benefit. Instead, it redistributes the wealth in favor of the first comers. Inflation is, in effect, race to see who can get to the new money quicker. So this is basically how the counterfeiters get ahead of certain people within the world. That's why you see, like in this graph right here, top 0.01% of the richest people in America versus the top 1% and the bottom 20%. That's how you see how income and economic inequality, that's the basis of it. The counterfeiters, they pushing in the new money, and whoever can get to the new money basically wins over everybody. So the latecomers, the ones stuck with the loss, are often called the fixed income groups, like the ministers, the teachers, people on salaries lag behind other groups in acquiring the new money. Particular sufferers will be those depending on fixed money contracts, contracts made in the days before the inflationary rise in prices. Life insurance beneficiaries, retired persons living off pensions, landlords with long-term leases, bondholders and other creditors, those holding cash, all will bear the burden of inflation. They will be the ones who are taxed. So how was the government able to enforce its price controls on monetary exchange rates? By legal tender laws. Under legal tender laws, money is used for payment of past debts as well as for present cash transactions. With the country's currency now prominent in accounting instead of its actual weight, contracts begin to pledge payment in certain amounts of money. Legal tender laws dictated what that money could be. So we could clearly see like that slowly gold is moving out of the equation, and fiat or physical paper money comes into conclusion. The advent of paper money and bank deposits, an economic boom when backed by gold or silver, provided the open sesame for government's road to power over money and thereby over the entire economic system. So this is when the government takes a stronghold on our financial state, on the money at hand, on money in general as a whole. This is where government gains its power. Permitting banks to refuse payment. The bluntest way for government to foster inflation is to grant the banks the special privilege of refusing to pay their obligations while yet continuing in their operation. While everyone else must pay their debts or go bankrupt, banks are permitted to refuse redemption of their receipts at the same time forcing their own debtors to pay when their loans fall due. What governments want, after all, is not simply inflation, but inflation completely controlled and directed by themselves. So, a smoother approach to that would be establishing the central banking system. Now we get into the juicy stuff. Now we get into how the central banking system all started. So let's see. Central banking, removing the checks on inflation. America's adoption of the Federal Reserve System, our central bank, in 1913 was greeted as finally putting us in the ranks of the advanced nations. Central banks are often nominally owned by private individuals or jointly private banks, but they are always directed by government appointed officials and serve as arms of the government. All the banks in the country became clients of the central bank. The central bank thus became armed with almost unlimited confidence of the public. By this time, the public could not see that the central bank was being allowed to counterfeit at will, and yet remain immune from any liability. It came to see the central bank as simply a great national bank, performing a public service and protected from failure by being a virtual arm of the government. So basically, the central bank is basically a virtual arm of the government. They work under the government. By the central bank pumping reserves into all the other banks, they can make sure that they can all expand together at a uniform rate. So the central bank pumps all the money into the individual private banks, and that's how the expansion of the banks, the private banks, the individual banks, the central bank, and the top head, the government, that's how they all expand. The limits on bank expansion are immeasurably widened from the clientele of each bank to that of the whole banking system. So as the clientele gets bigger within the banks, that's how the banks start to grow and get bigger, is by having more clientele. The act of establishing a central bank greatly multiplies the inflationary potential of the country. The government has achieved the power to control and direct the inflation of the banking system. Now we see that, we going off the gold standard now. They completely wiping away the gold standard, completely wiping away gold, and now the government central bank is taking over. In the 20th century, governments, rather than deflate or limit their own inflation, simply gone off the gold standard. When confronted with heavy demands for gold, this ensures that the central bank cannot fail, since its notes now become the standard money. So, in order for the central bank to grow and to not fail, they have to do away with the gold. So they completely left the gold standard. They completely left off the gold standard. Government has finally refused to pay its debts. Pseudo receipts to gold were first issued without backing. Then the bankruptcy was completed by eliminating gold redemption. The action of ending the connection between the various national currency names, dollar, pound, mark, gold, and silver is now complete. So at the beginning, basically, the dollar, the pound, the mark, these were basically just names, different types of weight when it comes to gold and silver. So now, as the dollar, the pound, the mark has become their own currency now. Fiat money, and the gold problem. When a country goes off the gold standard and onto the fiat standard, or the physical paper, or the physical paper money, it adds to the number of monies in existence. That's why we have a surplus of paper money, cash money, the dollar bill. And when there's a more of a surplus, like I mentioned before, when there's more of a surplus of this money, that's when the value of the money starts to go down and the demand for it starts to go down and the prices start to go up because there's a whole bunch of it. In addition to the commodity monies, gold and silver There are now flourished independent monies directed by each government imposing its fiat rule. With a supply greater than gold and a lower demand, its purchasing power quickly depreciates. Since government is inherently inflationary, it will keep depreciating as time goes on. So we even see now like the value of the dollar is starting to go down over time because, like I said, you don't see that many people using cash now. Currency wars. In a world of fiat monies, each country has its own money. The international division of labor, based on an international currency, has been broken, and countries tend to divide into their own units. Lack of monetary certainty disrupts trade further, and the standard of living in each country declines. Each country has freely fluctuating exchange rates with all other countries. The exchange rate of its currency falls in relation to foreign currencies. It also greatly raises the cost of imported goods, and this means a great deal to those countries with a high proportion of international trade. One currency will always be artificially overvalued and the other undervalued. Generally, governments have deliberately overvalued their currencies for prestige reasons. So let's say there's a trade between America and Japan. If America has undervalued artificial money or over undervalued artificial currency, then their exports to Japan, the cost of the exports to Japan will be cheaper. Whereas if Japan has an overvalued currency, then their exports to our country will be more expensive. At present, the world is enmeshed in a chaotic welter of exchange controls, currency blocks, restrictions on convertibility, and multiple systems of rates. New World Order. Clearly, the dream is clearly the dream is some sort of one world digital currency manipulated by a world government and central bank. I can already see this coming. Even though the national currency problems have so far been too diverse and conflicting to permit meshing into a single unit, this dream still lies in the dim future. I could see that. And I have a bad feeling this might happen, but I believe in order for us to prevent this, that's why we need to share more of this information, and we need more people we need more financial literacy. We need to, you know, have more financial literacy, learn more about this stuff. Uh, investing our money into different assets and to diversify ourselves, diversify our portfolio when it comes to our finances. We need to always stay up to date with the latest news and just always learning and growing every single day. And I came up with a list on what we can do to better ourselves when it comes to this information because we need to know this information. That's why I'm trying to bring this information to the forefront. The world is moving steadily in this direction. Uncertain times remind us to depend on no one. Be risk averse. Stay ready to pivot. Diversify and keep learning. Never trust banks. Don't put your wholehearted trust in these banks. Focus on growth and protection. You are your greatest asset. Build on your skills and develop your life portfolio and stay financially literate. So guys, I'm here to tell you we can't rely on outside sources. We clearly can't rely on government. I just showed you proof. I just showed you some valuable information on what this crooked government, what these banks do. I did the government, not all people within government, but I believe some people within government, these banks, are not even human. I believe some of them are reptilian shapeshifters. The people behind the government, these higher powers, the powers that be. some of them, I believe they're not even human. They're just evil and crooked. So I just showed you proof that we can't rely on government. We can't rely on banks. We can't rely on any outside sources whatsoever. All we got is ourselves, man. All we got is ourselves and God, of course, the creator. So we can't be putting our trust and faith in these outside sources. We're all that we got, man. We're all that we got. So that's why I'm bringing this information because I want to help. I want to. My goal is to help every single person on this planet. That's my goal. It might sound crazy, might sound outrageous, but that's my goal. I want to help as many people as I can, diversify myself, not just talk about spirituality, but finances, psychology, health and fitness, everything. I want to, I'm a polymath. I consider myself a polymath. I'm into different broad ranges of subjects and things of that nature. So I want to help as many people as I can in many different things, including finances. And more people need to learn about this stuff. All in all, in conclusion, government meddling with money has not only brought untold tyranny into the world, it has also brought chaos and not order. It has fragmented the peaceful, productive world market and shattered into a thousand pieces. Trade and investment hobbled and hampered by myriad restrictions, controls, artificial rates, currency breakdowns, etc. It has helped bring about wars by transforming a world of peaceful intercourse into a jungle of wearing currency blocks. We find that by using force or threats with money brings not order, but conflict and chaos. So anything that government touches, anything that, government tries to intervene with, it's only going to bring destruction and chaos and torture, torment, just a jungle of mess. So, like I said earlier, guys, we can't rely on government. I just showed you this. The proof is in the pudding. We can't rely on government. We can't rely on banks. We can't rely on uh, preachers, gurus, teachers. We can't rely on anybody outside of ourselves. Well, the only people we can with the only thing we can rely on is ourselves and God. That's why I always, preach and tell, have faith in the Most High, trust in the Most High, have a closer relationship with your higher self and the Creator, things of that nature, because we can't rely on anything else. So, for more in-depth information, check out the book "What Has Government Done to Our Money" by Murray in Rothbard. So, this is where I got the information from. All this information I got in the PowerPoint that I presented to you all. This is where I got my information from. So if you want more in-depth information, on how money started, the book goes a little bit more in depth into it. It talks about you know, World War One, things like that. It goes more deep in depth into it. So if you guys want to check this book out, I'll leave the link in the description below if you guys want to check that out. So let me stop sharing real quick. So, guys, there you have it. This is what has government done with our money. We all know that government is sneaky, slimy. Government is crooked, ran by evil people. So I thought I'd just bring this information to the forefront, share this information with you all. I hope you gained something, learned something from this video, from this presentation, and yeah. So hopefully this help you out. Open your eyes, wake you guys up, things like that. All right. So till next time, and always remember, all power resides from within. Always keep the faith because God and the universe is always working for you. Take care, guys. God bless.